Hey, y'all. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a pleasure to be here today, and it's a particular pleasure because my job is to introduce the great Denise O'Donnell. But before I do, I want to ask for a moment or two of indulgence because I want to introduce somebody else to you all, somebody who most of you have never met. I want to talk about a wonderful, remarkable person named Alfred Siegel. So Alfred Siegel, as some of you may know, was the deputy director of the Center for Court Innovation, who passed away unexpectedly in January from a sudden heart attack. And I had the extraordinary pleasure of working side by side with Alfred for 15 years. And many people, including me actually, came to view him as the heart and soul of our organization. But in truth, this wasn't always the case. In fact, when he first arrived at our doors, he was a little bit of a fish out of water. He had never worked at a nonprofit before. He actually came to us from city government, where he helped run the Department of Probation for many years. And to be honest, Alfred's public presentation didn't scream out innovator when you first met him. He didn't dress like an internet entrepreneur. He wasn't cursed with that horrible syndrome, smartest guy in the room syndrome. Unlike so many wise men, he didn't feel the need to beat you over the head with his intelligence. But with Alfred, appearances could be deceiving, because beneath his somewhat conventional exterior beat the heart of a relentless reformer. So many of the projects that are here today from New York, Red Hook and Midtown and Brownsville and Harlem and Bronx Community Solutions, so many of these projects bear his fingerprints. Without his can-do spirit, his deep knowledge of the justice system, and his capacity to persevere in the face of enormous obstacles, many of these projects simply wouldn't exist. Since Alfred passed away, I've spent a fair amount of time thinking about what made him truly special. And the conclusion I've come to is that the secret of Alfred's success, the active ingredient that he imprinted in the DNA of all the projects that I mentioned, the secret ingredient was kindness. And at the Center for Court Innovation, we are determined to carry forward this deceptively simple legacy. One thing we are doing in the days to come is we're creating a scholarship fund in Alfred's memory in concert with John Jay Public University in New York City. Each year, we will help defray tuition costs for a student that is interested in a career in criminal justice and who has overcome challenges on the path to higher education. Anyone who's interested in learning more or making a contribution, hint, hint, should check out our website in the days to come. So now, while the scholarship will be an important annual event on our calendar, I've also been thinking about how to translate Alfred's capacity for decency and kindness into action on a daily basis. Now, I have to admit that this doesn't come easily for me. As those of you who know me know, left to my own devices, I can be elitist and judgmental, maybe even a tad mean. That's my natural state of being. So how can I be more like Alfred? What would that even look like? How do those of us who cared so deeply about this man honor his life and legacy each and every day? Here is my answer. We honor Alfred when we assume good faith rather than the worst in our colleagues and our funders and our partners. We honor Alfred when we look for the humor in situations, even if sometimes the best we can offer is a dark brand of gallows humor. And we honor Alfred when we celebrate small victories, not just the graduation ceremony and the front page story, but the encouraging meeting, the well-written memo, and the helpful phone call. But Alfred's brand of kindness was more than just a matter of personal style. It was actually a philosophy about the work of justice reform. So we also honor Alfred when we acknowledge the vulnerabilities of our fellow citizens and offer them a chance, or two, or even three, to avoid jail and prison. And we honor Alfred when we seek to treat both victims and defendants with dignity and respect. And we honor Alfred when we look for ways to work together to improve the quality of life in our neighborhoods. In short, we honor Alfred when we advance community justice. And that's what brings us all here today. The idea that we can bridge the gaps that all too often divide criminal justice agencies from the people that they are intended to serve, that we might be better able to encourage law-abiding behavior through alternatives to incarceration, and that the justice system has an important role to play in transforming damaged neighborhoods. Over the next few days, you'll hear a lot of talk about evidence-based programs and validated assessment instruments and using data to measure results. These are incredibly important developments, and we owe Denise O'Donnell and Kim Ball and the rest of BJA a real debt of gratitude for helping to bring greater rigor and sophistication to the field of criminal justice. I believe that the community justice programs that we're here this week to discuss and analyze and disseminate embody the cutting-edge, smart-on-crime approach that BJA has been advocating. But they embody something else too, and that is the old-fashioned virtue of kindness. I recently came across a speech that I liked by the wonderful writer George Saunders from Syracuse University. And in it he says, "Kindness, it turns out, is hard. It starts out all rainbows and puppy dogs and expands to include, well, everything. One thing in our favor, some of this becoming kinder happens naturally with age. It might be a simple matter of attrition. As we get older, we come to see how useless it is to be selfish, how illogical, really. We come to love other people and are thereby counter-instructed in our own centrality. We get our butts kicked by real life, and people come to our defense and help us, and we learn that we're not separate and we don't want to be." For me, the money line here is this last one. We get our butts kicked by real life, and people come to our defense and help us. The people who come to our programs every day certainly fit this description. They could be victims looking to the St. Albans Community Justice Center in Vermont for restoration after a crime has occurred. They could be defendants at the San Francisco Community Justice Center around the corner who are suffering from long histories of trauma, addiction, and homelessness. Or they could simply be concerned local residents turning to the Brownsville Community Justice Center in Brooklyn for help combating pervasive violence in their neighborhood. Whatever the case, they come to us because the world has kicked their butts. How should we respond, those among us who are lucky enough to be in positions of authority? Do we respond with blame and vindictiveness, or do we respond with kindness and a measure of forgiveness? At the risk of being reductive, this seems to me to be the fundamental question for our criminal justice system. I know what Alfred Siegel would say. So while you won't find any panel or presentation devoted to kindness and decency on our agenda, I think these values are the threads that run through all of the programs that are represented at this summit, whether they're trying to improve environmental design or reduce collateral consequences or link defendants to desperately needed services. And these values are why I believe that community justice is such an important reform movement. Because if we succeed in spreading this set of ideas, we can help the criminal justice system to inch just a little bit closer to living up to its highest ideals. And this means a criminal justice system that is not just more effective, but also kinder and more compassionate as well. So, all of which is a long wind-up to Denise O'Donnell. I don't think that there is anyone who's in a better position to understand this reality that I've just described than Denise O'Donnell. Over the years, Denise has had the chance to see the challenges that the justice system faces from a variety of different angles. Before she came to Washington, D.C., she held a number of the most important criminal justice positions in New York, including U.S. Attorney and Deputy Secretary for Criminal Justice, where she oversaw state police and corrections and parole. In New York, she developed a reputation for integrity and common sense, two qualities that I think are the essential prerequisites to being an effective public servant. And that's why I was so pleased when President Obama appointed her to be the head of BJA. Over the last several years, we've seen her steady hand behind so many smart initiatives, including new work in the area of probation, prosecution, and with an assist from my friend Tim Murray, pretrial justice. She has also been a firm supporter not only of community justice, but of the ideas that lay behind community justice, things like community engagement and legitimacy and procedural justice and meaningful alternatives to incarceration. We are truly, truly lucky to have her in DC fighting the good fight on our behalf. Please join me in welcoming Denise O'Donnell.